Greetings to one and all. It's your old buddy Jay here, coming at you with another episode of Countermeasures J Play. This is going to be a little bit of a short one. So I like to do a review at the end of completing one of these games, and usually what happens is I'm talking over the incredibly loud title music and sequence at the end. Sorry, the end credits, if you like. So I just thought I might just jump back in for a couple of minutes and just give this a little review and talk about what I liked about it and what I didn't. So I've always been a Resident Evil fan, and I loved the remakes of 2 and 3. I thought they were great. They really took what was brilliant about those games and emphasized them and sort of really sorted out all the problems that they had and really emphasized the elements that were really good and turned them into something a bit special. So when they said that they were doing Resident Evil 4, I was quite excited about that because Resi 4 is one of those kind of seminal games. Came out around 2005 originally, and was just really well received, and it was like one of the very first successful kind of horror action games. And a lot of games that came out after this used a lot of what Resident Evil 4 did as a kind of template. So so back then it was quite groundbreaking. So the remake, I thought, well, they'll obviously build on what has made that successful and do something a little bit extra special. I kind of felt that while I did enjoy it, because obviously it's incorporating the mechanics of the remake of 2 and 3, and there's a whole load of kind of quality of life features that are really successful here, that like the camera's just better, and obviously things like the quality of the graphics are amazing. They kept all the cheesy dialogue. They didn't lose any of the kind of heart of the writing, which you've got to just kind of go through it and accept the fact that it is a bit naff, but that's fine because that's the style of this game, and I think that's fine. So I did enjoy those elements. I kind of felt that the controls in this were, while they'd improved some things like the aiming and everything, felt a little bit more snap to, and there was a little bit more kind of item management going on that was, it was easier to jump into your case and rearrange everything and craft, etc., etc. I thought they got that really well. I did feel like the movement in the game was particularly, it was so patchy. Sometimes you were moving really quickly where it wanted you to. Other times it was restricting movement, so you were moving incredibly slowly through areas. I didn't really feel, because of that change of pace throughout the game, didn't really feel that was very successful. So it kind of felt that spoiled it a little bit. There were some elements in this that they took out from the original as well. So in the original you had things like where you were being chased by boulders, and you were also there was a fire pit level and all this kind of stuff, and there were some things that I remembered, like having to shoot people through the scope when Ashley was being taken away on a boat. None of that seemed to be in it. I was waiting for that moment, and it wasn't in this. And then I also remembered that there was also a section in the original where you were fighting, and there were a lot of cannons. And though there was a cannon section in this, it seemed very different. Like they hadn't, like it wasn't as kind of open. So I was kind of waiting for that to happen. And because those elements were kind of still in my mind from playing this originally, I kind of felt like when they didn't happen, I was a little bit disappointed. And that happened maybe 10 times throughout the game, where there were various bits that I thought, oh, this is that section that leads to this. And then it didn't. It kind of did something different. And I appreciate they wanted to do something different. But what was there before it is kind of what made the game for me. So quality of writing is whatever. I don't know. For 2005, probably fine. The graphics and everything fine, that the kind of management of items and that kind of mechanic was good. I thought all the animations were great. I thought the characters were as cheesy as you'd expect them to be in their kind of cutscenes, like Lewis. And I was a bit disappointed. Like, you used to be able to shoot the merchant, but you can't do that anymore. And there were just a few things like that that were just kind of quirky enough that they just left them out. So I think because of that, that kind of let it down a bit for me. So when I look at these remakes, obviously they haven't done 1 yet. I'm sure they're going to. 2 is a masterpiece. 3 is like an extension of 2 and just felt like a natural progression. This is a real step away from that storyline, and while the story still holds up with it all being like this kind of amber that they find, and then there's all these creatures and things like that, I think that all still stands up as well, but it didn't feel as pushed as the previous remakes. So for that, I've got to mark it down a little bit. I mean, most people probably would say this is a 10 out of 10, and that there might even be a contender for Game of the Year, and that's what I thought going in. That I thought that's how I would feel when I finished, and the truth is that I think it's probably a 7 out of 10 for me. I think that's probably where it sits. It you know, aside from the things that you'd expect, which I just take for granted now, there should be good graphics if they're going to do these remakes. They want to resell these games, they better make them really good. And they kind of the 5 things they had to get right, they probably got 3 of them right. So I'm going to have to mark it down a little bit. So yeah, that is my review for Resident Evil 4. I do recommend that you play it if you've never played it. I also recommend that you go back and play the original, because there are elements in that that I think are better than the gameplay in this. But as a kind of revisit, I thought they did a decent job with it, and I did enjoy it. So there you go. That's my review. Until next time, be good, stay safe, and be kind to one another. Peace out. We gone.